should sit down and have a chat with the directors of HBRIC and the directors of Port as an entire team, and have a good solid chat about what's the
Not the directors of Port.
Sorry,
The directors of the Port.
of the Port.
No, why would they be
Okay,
involved?
with HBRIC. But anyway, my point is that a normal process would be that's exactly how you do it, and if you want to tune up the SOI and the process, you get some agreement.
Yeah. Okay, the paper has lapsed. Bring it back in. We're moving on to the next item. Yeah. Are there any questions? I've already asked mine. The HBRIC report. Do our HBRIC directors have any comment on this one pager? You're allowed to, I think. That was the SOI. This is the report, and I think, yeah.
And just for clarification, you're only receiving this information, it's
That's
not
right.
a decision.
That's right.
So I think it's...
No, I've already asked a question related to it. Any other questions related to it?
Yeah, no, actually, Chair, I'd like to ask the directors what was the thinking behind the repayment of the $6 million loan from HBRIC and putting that onto an unsecured loan facility at this time?
That was done before we got there.
You're bloody useful. He might as well leave the room again.
Can I ask you through the chair? Can I ask you or the directors present here if they could possibly find out that information for me and get back to me on it? You've got the answer over there?
Yeah, I believe it is cheaper. I mean, they don't need to pay 6%.
Because they were paying 6% to the
Well,
council for that.
they were actually paying so many basis points above 90 days, but they, I mean, I encouraged them to have a relationship with a commercial bank anyway. I mean, that was the way it was set up to start with, and they came back to council and said, well, we'll have the money from you. I mean, the money that we've given over is by way of an advance, and council gave them authority to borrow to take it forward. They came back and just borrowed from us. So I've got no problem with that. But one thing I think they should consider, and it's probably high on their mind, is that if the Ruataniwha proceeds and if the money is required on a medium to long term, then they can't be, in my opinion, doing short-term arrangements at low interest rates and expect us to pick up a medium to long-term commitment. That money will be reallocated. So they need to look at that.
Any more questions? We're just asked to receive this report. So do I have a mover to receive this report? A mover. Councillor Bailey, seconder. I can't be. Councillor Curtin, will you second that? Seconder. Anyone else want to talk about this? Otherwise, all those in favour of receiving this report? Aye. Against? It's carried. So on item 15, I haven't read the newspaper this morning, but I'm told.
So through you, Chair, the paper's very brief. I've stuck to your 2-page instruction.
Three, you got three here.
Three. I'll take it as read. Just a couple of additional points that you've probably learnt through the media as we did, and then got a press release from the Department of Internal Affairs that the reporting date for stage 1 is now 12 May and stage 2 is 8 December. So the paper's traversed a little bit the stage 2 proposed process. We'll get more clarity on that once we get from the inquiry panel their scope in terms of reference, etc. for stage 2. And at that stage we'll bring back to you more detail around any proposed submission and the process or the way that we'll look to manage that. And just finally, in terms of the costs on page 84, note 2, legal fees. So Paul was in communication with Chen Palmer, and we've had advice from him that we're expecting about another $70,000 invoice from them, and that concludes their costs to this point. And then, so the total would then be 682 thereabouts. And as I've indicated in the paper, what we'll be proposing to do is in stage 2 is to absolutely rationalise or minimise the legal costs and look to use internal resources and or planning consultants to assist with that work. So happy to take any questions.
The submission that's referred to in item 8, is that one of the submissions is now available on the website somewhere?
Yeah, everything that we've produced is either in the Dropbox that you've got access to or is in the Department of Internal Affairs website. So everything that the inquiries had put before them, including submissions from other parties, is there.
So is it beyond the time frame of this available meeting time to briefly indicate what are the faults that we acknowledged?
So there were how many key areas? 4 key areas. One was the if you like the implementation of the NES, National Environment Standing for Drinking Water Supply. We acknowledged that that our process was there in substance, but the process details were sort of, you could say, tardy. They weren't well documented. So that's an area that we acknowledge that there can and will be improvement on, and we're fully expecting the NES will be the subject of quite extensive consideration in stage 2. And it's certainly something that the joint working group, which is an operational group of staff between the 2 councils, or in fact all of now Napier City Council, Hastings District and the District Health Board, with potentially Wairau and Central Hawke's Bay in the near future. That's a particular issue that group is focused on, as in how to give best effect to that. The other was our reporting, so our monitoring and reporting in terms of the purpose of it and the way we do it. And the other area was, sorry, my mind's just drawing a blank here. Sorry, yes, yeah, you're right. The compliance monitoring was the third one that we acknowledged that certainly our risk-based approach, given this incident, will change. The risk profile for this has changed. And we are active today in terms of a new process or a new procedure for that. And then the fourth one, which I've detailed in paragraph 9, was the 2008 consent replacement. So those were the 4 key areas that the council assisting the inquiry were focused on for us. And we've accepted some criticisms for the first 3 and see no reason to accept the criticism for the fourth, as detailed in paragraph 9.
Thank you, Chair. Do we have any insurance that might help us with some of this?
So we did attempt that, and unfortunately our liability insurance doesn't cover that. Paul can probably...
No, it was quite an extensive review over a period of time, and May 10 assisted us with that. And the Well, I mean, it was spend $1 for lots more.
Make a comment on that.
Yeah, May's
Mei
been-
Chen's advice was it would be extremely expensive to go much further
Yeah.
on. So we gave up on the insurance, cutting for the chase, sadly.
Just to make a comment, Chair, more than a question, but I'm really pleased to see you being extremely cautious about how you handle legal costs and for the second part of the hearing. That would be much appreciated.
I make a point. I don't believe the stage two of the hearing needs a lot of legal review. It might be a once over lightly maximum. Yep. Right.
You got a question?
Just the issues around our planning processes, do they need legal consideration?
I'd suggest that we probably need to wait for the inquiry to issue its terms of reference and see how far it wants to cast the net. It could be as detailed as regional planning processes, or it might be at a very high level around them, the mire of legislation that sits around this, and the complexity of things like the Drinking Water Standard, which is about 750 pages long. So I think if we hold that question, I think those are the sorts of questions and things we'll bring back to you once we have the scope, terms of reference, and we can discuss how far into the weeds we want to go in terms of a submission. Yep.
Given the size of that legal expenditure, I'd welcome some guidance on how we characterize it. To a lot of people, the characterization of it would be that we spent $700,000 to manage the placement of blame on this project. Is that what we spent $700,000 on?
Councillor, I'm not even sure we should go there anymore.
Well, it's a question asked over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. You know, I mean, what did we buy for $700,000? I presume what we bought was a expensive effort to make sure blame did not fall on us that we feel we did not deserve. Is that an apt way to characterize the spend?
I don't believe you can characterise the spend. I mean, effectively you have legal advice and legal representation in these processes for risk management. None of us are lawyers, none of us understand the law and the complexity and the process around these inquiries. So you have legal advice counsel to assist you through the multiple steps. And look, I absolutely have lost sight of just how many steps and processes and various iterations of this there have been, that if in the absence of legal advice we would be absolutely have been lost at sea. So that's the way I've always viewed lawyers and legal advice, is it's your way of managing risk.
Every substantive party in the process has borne fairly similar levels, dare I say, of legal cost, actually. And what I would say, my observation was that the inquiry has been quite good at getting other parties to pay for the investigative work. You could argue the inquiry actually should have paid for that itself, frankly. And they've been very good at asking multiple questions endlessly and more iterations. So, I mean, I share your views. This is an enormously frustrating expense. Actually, in terms of we could the money, we could the council apply its resources and money and time and effort better. Then I absolutely agree with the sentiment. But the problem is, once you're in it, and you're entirely driven by the inquiry itself, which is exactly what's happened here. I think that's fair to say, guys, isn't it?
You are, and look, just if it helps for a little bit of context, later in the agenda you're going to have our staff updates, the work program through April. In there's an item that relates to the Greenpeace judicial review of extension of the command area to the Ruatani Whakonsents. That cost us in excess of $100,000. Didn't actually end up in court and was abandoned. So that's the seventh of this. This is involved pretty much from mid-August through till mid-February of more or less daily contact by myself with Mei Chen or her junior staff. It's been a very substantive process, and like Andrew, I absolutely share the frustration. I think about what I could have done out in the field with $700,000, but it was in this case unavoidable.
I don't know for sure, but I think Hastings spent half on legal costs. They claim they did. Well, you know, I just don't want to get into
TQCs?
oh, that's what they told me. Well, we'll ask for their accounts, but anyway, I mean, we could get into a fight over this, and what is done is done, and I think we've all had our say, and we just got to learn that we can do it better next time. There was always a next time, because
I wouldn't wish a next time on it.
there'll be a next time something else, as Ian mentioned. You know, it'll be somebody else will have a go at us, and we just got to be careful. I guess the recommendation is that we receive this report. Do we have a mover? Mover? Seconder? Seconder. Do you wish to speak, either of you? No, it's been spoken. All those in favour of receiving this report? Aye. Against? It's received. So we go into the work plan. 16. We could take this as read, and any questions?
Just a comment, Chair, on page 90, the East Coast Farming Expo, which we participate in. Encourage all councillors to get up there if they can. So we have a meeting on the Wednesday, it's next week, but there is a range of speakers on the Thursday, plus a whole lot of innovation around everything that's important to us and other things of interest. So encourage people to attend.
Yeah, I would endorse that. It's very competently organised by Fenton's better half, and I went last time, and it was seriously good. One of the best, what would you call it, conference or show that I've been to.
It was an attempt to get sheep and beef farmers front and centre on some of the issues that are confronting them and some of the technologies that are there to help them get through it, and water quality is one of them. So.
And you might learn some things. If James is speaking again, I certainly learned quite a lot with James last time. I just want to go just to make a comment about the on page 85, the that water symposium. We are in the stages of setting some dates now that the review came out, and we're thinking some dates around that. Monday the 22nd or the 1st and 2nd of June. And just to clarify what that is really about, it's about the public having a chance to come in, very much like the oil and gas one, where the public can come in and have their say, and it's not too technical, but to have all the technical people there that can answer, and also an opportunity, we thought, for Tank to, to tell the public what they're doing. So it's really a public occasion. Yes.
Number 42, shallow nitrate sampling. What is the what's triggered that, and what's being looked at?
So it's
What
something
risks are involved there?
So it's something that we do on a reasonably regular basis in groundwater, shallow groundwater nitrate surveys, region-wide. So that work started, I think, December, and will conclude, as the paper says, in Easter. Our interest in nitrate in groundwater is obviously, well, not obviously, there's two reasons. One is that high levels of nitrate beyond maximum allowable value can have human health impacts, as well as groundwater being a contributor to surface water flow and potentially impacting on nitrate concentrations in the stream.
So, as I recall, our last statement of whatever it's called, State of the Environment Report, talked about rising nitrate levels in various places. There were some hot spots, whatever. Is this a more substantial documentation of that?
No, it'll feed into the overall 5-yearly cycle of SOE monitoring. So the SOE reporting around groundwater is typically associated with our deeper groundwater rather than the shallow groundwater. Shallow groundwater is not unusually can have high levels of nitrate and is often associated with what we call quick flow, or the water that ends up in surface water fast, but is not necessarily a contaminant or something that we see in the deeper groundwater resources that people are using for irrigation or potable supplies. It's just completing the picture in terms of what's happening in the shallow layers.
So does this have any bearing on the issue that Mayor Yule seems to be fixated on, which is young water, what might be in the young water, blah, blah, blah? Is this related to that?
No, it's not. So we've also, I'm not sure whether it's actually reported in here, but in about, what was winter last year, we conducted an aquifer-wide ageing study for the Hiratonga aquifer. That work was done by GNS, and that's due within days, literally, for us to understand whether there has been any changes to groundwater age. Water chemistry is also a part of that work, but it's not focused on nitrate. It's typically looking at minerals within groundwater rather than nutrient contamination. So the nitrate's more about its association with surface water and the potential impacts of high nitrate on the deeper groundwater for drinking water supplies. But it's not an age-related issue.
Just the item 24, tentative cumulative open space planting dates. Are they less tentative now? Are they more fixed, or because I'd really be interested in knowing when they're actually on, so I could attend. If whoever's manages that.
That'll be Mike's. Mike.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we can try and move that we accept the work plan. Then we receive the work plan.